So, why is World War II the most preventable war in human history? And why does the desperate desire to prevent another war cause it? Again and again, the aggression of the hostile powers, of the dictatorships, of Imperial Japan, Fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, and Soviet Russia, is met by a weak response. Instead of confrontation, the West embraces either a conciliation, an appeasement of aggression, or even worse, they simply ignore it as if it's not their business. Had the Germans been opposed vigorously by the Versailles powers, actually, let's start earlier. Japan invades China in 1931 to take away the northeastern region of Manchuria. Had the League of Nations, the British and the French, been willing to stand up and risk a war with the Japanese in 1931, the future aggression against China, against the Dutch East Indies, against the United States, in other words, the Pacific part of World War II, could very well have been prevented. But we rolled over, the United States, isolationist, the problem of others is not ourselves, and the French, exhausted, and the British, tired, fatigued, distracted. No one wanted another war. No one wanted to be a sucker for the merchants of death or for the patriotic fools of All Quiet on the Western Front. Then, Italy in Abyssinia, the League of Nations' last great opportunity to stand up against an aggressor nation. And what does it do? Nothing! Worse than nothing. It whinges and prevaricates and can't even bring itself to levy serious sanctions against the Allies because it might provoke a war, which is the whole point. Did I say that right? The whole point, which is the whole point of collective security. The nations of the League come together. Together, they stand against, and if necessary, fight and push back the aggressor. But no one wants to do it. The wolf is among sheep. The bully is among victims. The world is exposed to the hunger of the predator. By the time we get to the mid and late 30s with Germany, it's almost already too late. But it wasn't. Still, things could have been done. In the early 30s, when the Germans began to openly flout the arms limitations of the Versailles Treaty, the West did nothing. It could have stopped it with diplomacy, sanctions, and strong actions. In fact, the anti-Nazi Germans were desperately hoping that a foreign response to Hitler's overweening ambition could overthrow Hitler at home. Then, in 1936, Hitler openly violates the Versailles Treaty by marching into the Rhineland. Had the French been willing to take a chance and stop the Germans, the German army had orders to immediately withdraw. Hitler would have lost so much face and so much prestige that he probably, or quite possibly, might have lost power. But no! The Anschluss of Austria could have been stopped by Mussolini or by the French or by the British, but no. Oh, they're German anyway. Let's let him get away with invading a country hours before the people of that country get to vote on whether or not they want to join Germany or not. Remember, Hitler's Anschluss overwhelmed and prevented a popular vote on the very question that Anschluss was about. Then we come to the Sudetenland, where Germany wants to carve up another sovereign country that has ironclad guaranteed defense treaties with the West, that is being offered support by the Soviet Russians under Stalin. that has a strong mountain barrier that would have really slowed the Germans down. And while the German army is pinned on the Sudeten Alps, the French and the British could have moved in had they been, I don't know, aggressive. There are times in life to be aggressive. Instead, Neville Chamberlain flies like some would-be messiah to Germany twice to ask Hitler what his price for peace was. And Hitler happily told him. And at the Munich conference, Chamberlain leads the West to shred solemn treaties that the West had to protect Czech sovereignty. The West, in order to avoid war, abandons its neighbor. It achieves peace at the price of Czechoslovak sovereignty. And as the West turns its back, and as Neville Chamberlain waves his paper and says, this paper has the signature of Hitler and I, and it will guarantee peace in our time, the tanks moved in, and the Czech and Slovak nation died. Oh, it hadn't fully been killed yet, but its only defense area had been taken over by the Germans, and its defense treaties had been shown to be utterly worthless. At Munich, the West's craven desire for peace feeds a predator, one of its allies, in order to secure peace. It's like if you are running from a tiger or a bear, you look and the other people around you look, and there's somebody slow and old and weak, and you sort of trip them up in hopes that the tiger or the bear will stop and eat them and let you and your cowardly accomplices escape. And the world cheered. The King of England looked on with admiration at the peacemaker. And when Germany predictably broke its word, and when Hitler took over the Czech lands and dominated Slovakia, Chamberlain's pride was hurt, and then he made a defense agreement with the Poles. Why anyone would trust Chamberlain to do anything at this point is unknown to me. But Chamberlain made no serious effort to do anything about Poland, other than promising to go to war as a tripwire if the Germans attacked. But by this point, no one believed the British or the French. They had proved faithless allies. They had let opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to stand up against aggression when they were stronger than the aggressors slip. To the point that the Soviets said, well, if I can't do a deal with the West, I'll do a deal with Hitler. I'll at least get something out of it. And they did. They split Eastern Europe with the Germans. And they'd get paid for that in June of 1941 when Hitler stabs Russia in the back. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Remember, without Joe Stalin, World War II could not have begun, because without the Nazi-Soviet pact, Hitler would not have been able to invade Poland with any assurance that it would work out in Germany's favor. The most preventable war in human history, because most people really didn't want war. The German generals were dragged kicking and screaming by Hitler into war. But it happened because sometimes you need to fight now to prevent a fight later. You need to fight while you're strong before the enemy gains strength. If you appease, if you pay the Danegeld, if you give the enemy what it wants for being bad, if you reward a bully, it doesn't mean you won't have to fight. It just means that when the fight comes, you will not be in a position of advantage. Appeasement guarantees the Second World War, doesn't prevent it. Thank you.